Welcome back to OpenLine, talking all about Metro schools. We have with us Joe Bass, External Communications Director, and Chris Weber, Director of Student Assignment. If you want to call in, there's a number 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Let's take some calls. Let's go to Donna. Hello, Donna.
Hi. I was calling in about the new children that are graduating from high school. They have no communication skills. They come on the floor in a call center, and then they have panic attacks. In 2 weeks' time, I've seen 7 people go out in the hallways having panic attacks. So I was wondering if they were going to implement communication skills for them.
What do you mean by, what does that mean? You think like public speaking skills, or what do you mean?
We're just working one-on-one, talking on the phone like I'm in a call center, and they're technology savvy, but when it comes to talking one-on-one, they panic.
Right, right. So you're talking about communication skills.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Donna. What about that? Who wants to take that?
Well, you know, in all of our zoned high schools, we have what we call the academies in Nashville, and where students pick a themed, what we call academy, basically a school within a school, to study it with. And one of the big points of emphasis in the academies in Nashville is project-based learning, where students work together in teams on school projects and academic projects based on what they're learning in class. And so that's actually one of the things that they emphasize in project-based learning. One of the advantages of project-based learning is allowing students to work together and develop relationships with one another and develop communication skills with one another, so that they can work together as a team. And so I hope that she sees an improvement in that, because that's definitely a point of emphasis in our middle schools and our high schools. And like giving presentations. Absolutely.
Like I had to do that, and
absolutely.
I hated it. But it's part of that thing you got to do, I guess.
It is, and you know, that's a point of emphasis as well. That goes along with it. And actually, you know, if you want to talk about giving presentations at our museum magnet schools, you wonder what is a museum magnet. It basically is the kids learning the lessons so that they can then create their own learning experiences about them and be able to present them. So if you got to go up to John Early Museum Magnet in North Nashville, they actually have a museum in the school where the students are docents, and they're presenting about the artifacts that are donated by Scarrett Bennett to their visitors. It's pretty great.
Okay, great. All right, Donna, thanks for the call. Let's go to Philip. Hello, Philip.
Hey, the school zones.
Yes.
I cannot think of the name of the area. It's pretty much across from Hermitage Golf Course on Old Hickory Boulevard between Madison and Old Hickory. Familiar with it?
I'll ask you all. Schools. So you're asking the name of the school zone? Is that right?
No. It's my problem with school zones is what has happened to where school zones shut down commerce. Because if you try and traverse that area in the afternoon, Old Hickory Boulevard gets shut down for 2 miles because parents are turning a 4-lane road into a 2-lane road to pick up their kids. Why are kids not getting on the bus and going home? That's my problem. I don't hate children. Don't take this the wrong way.
So you don't hate children?
School zones are getting way out of hand with these parents dropping off their kids, and they're causing just chaos on the highway. Schools are not being built in the right areas. They need to be built off of major thoroughfares, or either that, or kids need to get on the bus and go home.
All right, let's talk about that. The car rider line, that's a big issue at a lot of schools.
Sure.
The car rider line. And Philip says schools aren't being built in the right areas. Well, these schools have been there forever. And there's been enormous growth all around them. Many of them have. But all right, so what do you have to say about what Philip
I'll address this in a few different ways. Number one, school zones are the domain of the Metro Police, and they do a fantastic job maintaining the safety around schools. Number two, I'll say that, you know, I agree that schools should be built on major thoroughfares, but you're right. A lot of these schools have been there for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and so they're built on residential streets. When we site schools now, we, number one, look for available property. Number two, look for where the students are, where it makes sense to build a school, and if we can build it on a major thoroughfare, then that's what we would like to do, because it does make it easier for everyone. I will say, you know, the car rider line, I wrote it down so I could find out which school he's speaking about because I'm not familiar with it myself. But the car rider line, our principals are just amazing because they have to deal with so many different aspects of a school. You know, one minute they're talking to kindergartners about addition, and the next minute they're figuring out the logistics of 300 parents who pick up their kids every day, which that's their choice. The kids don't have to ride the bus. If the parents want to pick them up, they can pick them up. But the principals are great at those kinds of logistics, and they do the pickup plans, they do the drop-off plans, and they do all sorts of arranging and educating, and it's really sometimes just a miracle to watch. But I'm going to check on that one and see if there's not something that might be done about it, or see what maybe the situation is at that particular school.
Well, and I wonder, and I don't know that any of us could really answer, but I wonder why it has changed. I do feel like when I was in school, you rode the bus, and now so many parents just pick up their kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is.
I think
well, part of the thing too is Philip talked about the school location, whether it should be on a main thoroughfare or whether it should be off of a main thoroughfare because it congests traffic along that thoroughfare. And we have difficulty either way, whether the school is located in a subdivision, then the traffic is even more complex there, and even when it's on a main thoroughfare, then that thoroughfare basically slows down that school zone right along the main thoroughfare. So we actually, it's tough both ways you go, where you locate schools at. I think traffic in Nashville in general is picking up very heavily as the population grows. And in addition to that, I think that our school zones do serve the students in that primary area, and we have a 1.25 mile walk radius or parent responsibility zone for that immediate area, and then otherwise families ride the school bus. I'm not sure which school Philip is talking about, but school choice can also complicate things because as parents pick a school across town, then they're responsible for getting the child there, and that could be causing to the increased number of car riders potentially.
There is a lot more school choice. What's the percentage now of students that don't go to their zone
so
school?
1 in 4.
1 out of 4.
1 out of 4 do not attend their zone school, so they attend a school of choice.
And that is different than when we were growing up. That's kind of the evolution that has happened, and that Metro believes very strongly in.
Yes.
And I guess explain that evolution and why that is such a good thing.
Yeah. Well,
in your opinion?
Well, really, it's about finding the best fit for your family and for your child. So it's about matching the learning styles and interests of your child. It's about sometimes families face hardships where, say, I want to be involved in my child's work in my child's school, but I work in another area of town, so I might want to bring my child there. There's also schools where they look for academic pathways. So even though in elementary or middle school they might look for a certain middle school program, so that then they could follow those same group of students through to high school. Now, one thing back to Philip's question on transportation, we do have a partnership that we started last year with MTA called Stride, and so this is a program that started with high schoolers, and so all high school students in the district have free MTA access. So we're trying to prevent families from having to drive them, and we've now extended that Stride program down to our middle school students as well. So if you're out of zone in a middle school, you can have access to a free MTA bus pass as well. The younger the child goes, the less likely a family is likely to put them on public transportation, but we are trying to do what we can to use the public transportation.
And Philip mentioned the location, and your job is to find, I guess, identify areas where new schools are needed.
Yes.
And so how tough is it to find appropriate property to put a school?
It's extremely tough. It's very difficult to find property, find the size that we need, and in the areas of town that we need, because often the areas that are growing are the areas where property is in the highest demand. And so, yeah, we're having to get very creative with that.
And you did that with Waverly Belmont. And now Hillsborough High School is another school that there's a great deal of discussion about the future of Hillsborough High School. It's obviously in a area. Well, they own a lot of property. It's on a lot of property.
Valuable property.
Right across from Green Hills Mall. It's a very valuable property. What is the thinking there, and both or either of you can take this, what's the thinking there about Hillsborough High School and its future?
Well, you know, we're having two conversations at the same time. We're talking about Hillsborough High School and Hillwood High School as well. Both schools are in bad need of renovation or being rebuilt. And so we're really just trying to find the answer that makes the most sense for the most people. So I'm actually really excited about the Hillsborough project right now and where it stands, because we have done some pretty unique community engagement around it. We did a couple of sessions last month, I believe, maybe earlier this month, where we brought together a big group of people, neighbors, parents, community leaders, and basically had tables set up with architectural models, just blocks, and said, here's a map of the campus, here's blocks that represent different pieces of a high school, put together what you think is a good idea. And so we got several groups of people putting together, you know, their ideas, telling us what features were important to them on the campus, how, you know, tall they were willing to build a school building, where they thought football and baseball made sense, and it really was educational for us because it let us know what the community wanted, and we feel like it was also educational for the community because they get to see what goes into that. Because it's, like Chris said, it's extremely difficult. When you're talking about building a high school for, you know, 1,500 kids, you know, that's potentially a $70+ million project if you're building a new school from scratch. And so it's extremely important we get it right. And that was a really fun process, and we're going to continue that a little bit and see where that takes us, and then use that to help draw up some proposals we can then take to the public for more input.
At some point there was a discussion about selling part of the land that the school is on now. It's a lot of property, as we said, in a valuable area. Is any of that land going to be sold? So
there was an original site plan drawn up. We commissioned one just to see what was possible, and the site plan came back with several options, and one of those options included selling off half of the campus and building a 6-story high school. The discussion never got much farther than that. I don't think that it's been discussed a whole lot since then. You know, we kind of just looked at the ideas that site plan presented, took a step back and said, okay, well, let's bring the community in and hear what's important to them as well. And so, you know, I don't really know where it stands right now, but I know that wasn't what the community presented to us at our engagement sessions, but I don't really know where it stands.
In other words,
right
the community, you're saying the community didn't want that.
Well, they were finding ways to use the whole campus. Whether it be a school on this half and then public use on this part here, or spreading the school out over the entire campus. So we're just really taking it from all sides, you know, community, the planning department, the new city leaders we have, and then, of course, you know, the most important thing for us is the needs of the students and what's best for the students.
And so, before we have a break, when you start looking at new schools, let's say in the Antioch area, buying property, are you actively trying to buy property? Is Metro out there negotiating?
Yeah.
So you all are trying to do that?
Yes, we're actively negotiating for property. That's not my role, but I am helping them to search for the property, and so we're looking for property right now for an elementary school close to the Hickory Hollow Mall location.
And that's got to be
for
hard.
Another elementary school. That's correct. Yes.
Is it possible even? I mean, I guess
there are pieces of property that are available that are large enough. It's a matter of just looking at the infrastructure. So the road infrastructure, some of those roads, once you go further south past Bell Road, some of those roads don't have really strong infrastructure to handle a lot of traffic that a school would require. And then you look at the available land right around Bell Road, which is fairly limited. But there are some options. I'm not sure exactly where things stand right at the moment, but we've been working with the Planning Commission to try to evaluate what those options are.
And there's some urgency to that.
Yes, definitely. The capital funds are in place now to both buy and build the school, so as soon as we can, we'd like to move forward.
All right, we'll take a break. If you want to call, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Any question about Metro schools? Take a break. Be back right after this.